This is the moment a wanted killer is apprehended by police after 2 days on the run.
Jacob, look at me, man. Can I come a couple of minutes closer so I can hear you? I won't go any closer and you can see my hands. Can I just to hear, mate? Just because I can't hear you and I want to talk to you.
After an hour and 40 minutes of threatening to jump, he's finally placed in handcuffs for the murder of his ex-mother-in-law. The events that took place on January 20th, 2025, represent one of the most horrific examples of domestic violence escalating to murder. This case shows how controlling behavior and emotional manipulation can lead to deadly consequences when challenged. Diane Cleary was 46 years old and a beloved mother, grandmother, and friend. Her family described her as someone who meant so much to so many people, far beyond her close and loving family. She was known to her 3 grandchildren as Nanny DD, a woman who brought joy and love into their lives. Her own children, Caitlin and her brother Callum, were the center of her world, and she would do anything to protect them. Diane was the kind of mother who wouldn't hesitate to step in when she saw her child being hurt. She recognized danger when she saw it, and she was willing to stand up to anyone who threatened her family's well-being. Jacob Clark was 25 years old and provided for his family working at the local McDonald's. He was in a relationship with Diane's daughter Caitlin, and they had 2 young children together. They had been together since 2016. What may have started as a positive relationship had become something much different by 2018. Clark exhibited classic signs of an abusive, controlling partner. He was manipulative, emotionally abusive, and used blackmail to maintain control over Caitlin when she tried to leave him. His behavior was so unpleasant and spiteful that Diane had thrown him out of her own home shortly after Caitlin gave birth in 2020. Even then, she could see what kind of person he was and the effect he was having on her daughter. The couple moved to a maisonette in Turners Road, Luton, in July 2020. But Clark's abusive behavior only escalated. He was violent toward both Caitlin and their children, creating a toxic environment that Diane watched with growing concern. By January 16, 2025, Caitlin had finally reached her breaking point. After yet another incident of abusive behavior toward her and the children, she took her kids and fled to her mother's house. Caitlin made it clear that the relationship was over. She told Clark he needed to vacate their shared home by Monday, January 20th, so she and the children could move back safely. Monday morning arrived grey and cold in Luton. Caitlin and her mother Diane drove to the maisonette at 10:23 a.m., expecting to find it empty so Caitlin could reclaim her home. Instead, they found Clark still there, refusing to accept that his control over Caitlin had finally been broken. What should have been a simple handover of keys was about to become a nightmare. Diane was firm but reasonable, making clear that Caitlin's decision to end the relationship was final and that Clark needed to respect that decision and leave. Faced with the reality that he could no longer manipulate his way back into Caitlin's life, Clark resorted to his usual emotional blackmail. He left the flat making comments about taking his own life, trying one last time to control Caitlin through guilt. Diane, seeing how upset these calls were making her daughter, took Caitlin's phone away and advised her to rest. It was a simple act of maternal protection that would cost Diane her life. Clark returned to the flat and confronted Diane directly. What happened next was witnessed by Caitlin, who watched in horror as the man she had once loved revealed his true nature. At the top of the stairs, without warning, Clark began hitting Diane in the head and face multiple times with a brick, blaming both women for his actions as he attacked. This wasn't a moment of madness. This was calculated violence. Caitlin desperately tried to help her mother, managing to get the brick away from Clark. But he wasn't finished. Determined to inflict maximum damage, he went to the kitchen to find more weapons. Clark returned with knives and scissors, continuing his relentless assault on Diane. Caitlin threw herself between Clark and her mother, desperately trying to shield Diane from the attack, but Clark was determined. He stabbed Diane in areas not protected by her daughter's body. But Clark wasn't finished with his twisted display of control. In a bizarre final act, he demanded that Caitlin cut his hair with the same scissors he had used to attack her mother. Caitlin, in shock and fearing for her own life, complied with this surreal request. In her brave attempt to save her mother, she had suffered her own injuries from Clark's weapons. Clark was arrested 2 days later, on January the 22nd. He'd returned to the flat to say bye to his children, and the police were called. Upon leaving, he made his way to the nearby bridge, climbed over the barrier, and contemplated jumping.
On the left. Is that him there? Is that one of our guys?
Jacob, look at me, mate. Can I come a couple of meters closer so I can hear you? I won't come any closer and you can see my hands. Can I just to hear, mate? Just because I can't hear you and I want to talk to you.
Yeah, do you want to take a seat? What we'll do is just stop for a band, come around and transport you, get a bit warm.
The evidence showed this was punishment inflicted on Diane for supporting Caitlin's decision to leave. Despite this, Clark initially refused to take responsibility for his actions. The case proceeded toward trial, forcing Diane's family to relive the horror of her murder through months of legal proceedings. Finally, on June 18, 2025, Clark pleaded guilty to murder and unlawful wounding. At least, he spared the family the additional trauma of a full trial, where they would have heard every horrific detail again.
Diane Cleary took to the stand herself to address her mother's killer, her former boyfriend. In tears, she said, "The whole family is broken. He took my everything. I will never feel her arms around me telling me everything's okay. I will never recover from this." It was the only time during the whole sentencing that Jacob Clark looked up, and he sobbed and shook as she spoke.
Clark was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 24 years and 324 days. The judge noted the sustained and excessive violence, the domestic abuse context, and the fact that the attack was witnessed by members of the public. The judge found that Clark had intended to kill Diane, rejecting any suggestion that this was anything less than deliberate murder. The case highlighted the deadly reality of domestic abuse escalation, when controllers like Clark can no longer manipulate their victims. When their authority is challenged by those who love their victims, violence often follows. Diane Cleary died doing what loving mothers do, protecting her child from someone she recognized as dangerous. Her instincts about Clark had been correct from the beginning, and her courage in supporting Caitlin's decision to leave cost her everything. As we remember Diane Cleary, we remember a loving mother and grandmother who died protecting her daughter from a controlling, violent man. Diane's legacy lives on in her children and grandchildren, who are now free from Jacob Clark's control and can begin to heal from the trauma he inflicted on their family. Rest in peace, Diane. Your love for your daughter and your courage in protecting her will never be forgotten.